In this video I'm going to show you how to do free motion embroidery. To transfer your picture onto your fabric you can use a light box and a friction pen, and that pen is heat erasable, so once you use an iron the design will come off it. So I've drawn my design out, and then I'm going to use 2 pieces of denim and then put my white fabric over the top of it and pin that down. Once I've pinned it down I'm going to stitch a line all around the outside of it just to hold it in place. There's 2 sorts of embroidery feet you can get. Both do exactly the same thing, they just look a little bit different. To attach them you unscrew the foot and then screw the other one on. So that you can move the fabric around freely you need to move the feed dogs down. The feed dogs are the pointy bits that stick up on the flatbed of the machine. So to do that, you open up the door, and then you can see on the right here, there's a point where you can move the lever over so that the dogs go down inside the machine. This is a Janome J324, but it's on most machines, that's an option. So when you put the foot down the machine, you'll see there is some space underneath the foot when you first do it. But when you lower the needle down, that space will disappear and the foot holds the fabric firmly. It's important to remember to lower the foot so the needle doesn't snap when it hits it. So I'm using A as the straight stitch, and I can move the fabric in any direction I want to now. And then if I change the stitch to the zigzag stitch, which is C, it will stitch a thicker line if I hold it still, and if I move it faster you get a more abstract line. To start embroidering in your design, select the stitch you're going to use. Here I'm using A, and then I'm just following along the lines that I've drawn. So if you go over them once you get a thin line, or you can go back and forth over it just like you're colouring in as many times as you want to until you get the effect that you want. When moving between lines you can either lift the foot up and move it over, and then all the little threads that are connecting it you can snip those off afterwards. So once I finished with the grey thread, I switched to the blue thread so I could do the outline of the river, and I'm using the C stitch, the zigzag stitch, and I've got it on a width of 1 just so I can create a thicker line which goes around the edge of the river, and then I can cut into this to make some reverse applique to reveal the denim below. I'm using the C stitch again to add some buildings, and if I change the width of the stitch I can get thicker houses. So as I'm adding on the buildings I'm switching between widths 2 and 4, and then I just carried on adding the buildings until the bobbin ran out. The next step was to cut out where the river is. So I'm just using some embroidery scissors to snip along the line that I drew. And as I've got 2 layers of denim, I can cut through the first one so that you can see the darker denim underneath. And then I use the scissors to fray the edges of it as well. I changed my thread to a green thread so I could add in the train line, and I've switched back to a normal straight foot and you put the feed dogs back up. So once that's all done I can just give it a steam to get rid of any of the friction pen that's left, and if there was any bits missing I could go back on the machine and add them in now. So I'm just adding a "You Are Here" marker, and that's the map finished.